Welcome to Laughing to Death, Moments in Mortality with two Death Doulas. I'm Lacy Bynett, and this is my co-host,
Taylor Bell.
Today, we are discussing what happens after we die. That's a big question.
Yeah, Lacy just decided to ask the biggest question of humankind, basically. So we're just going to dig in.
Yeah, this is a question that can amuse us or torment us or kind of everything in between. So it's something that comes up in death cafes. It comes up when we're working with clients. We've probably wrestled with it more than your average healthy individual that isn't facing, some kind of prognosis. I was thinking about how to approach answering this question for myself. And there are so many, I'm going to call them theories about what happens after we die. And there are three that I want to focus on that have impacted my beliefs. One is religious, one is spiritual, and one is humanist. So I'm just speaking to my own experience, of course. First, religious. This viewpoint was such a huge part of my upbringing. I grew up in a fundamentalist Church of Christ household. Lots of church service, lots of VBS, lots of doctrine. And it's even hard. I've noticed in thinking about this, it's kind of hard for me to speak openly about some of these ideas because it was really not welcomed to do that. If you questioned that it didn't look exactly the way it was presented to you, you better come up front so we can pray for you because you're losing your faith. And, it was a big deal. So that really wasn't welcomed. And so something I noticed as I was talking about it is a little bit scary for me. So I just want to acknowledge that. And the way it was presented to me, it was like a test. Like life is a test. And if you get one shot, and if you pass, you live in ecstasy forever. And if you fail, you burn in hell forever. And it was so intense. And you were responsible for other people's eternal life. It was traumatic, I think, really, when I was a child, I believed I was going to burn in hell if I fell asleep without praying for a prayer of forgiveness. Like that, if you want to trace back some anxiety.
Yeah, no. Shit, I mean. Oof.
I don't know if we've ever even talked about this. Anyway, it was very specific. You die and there's a waiting period and there's a rapture and then you go here and there's pearly gates and Jesus is going to say this to you and then the angels are going to look like this and no one's going to cry and this and that. I mean, it was very, very specific. Mm-hmm. That's something I don't subscribe to anymore, obviously, not in that way. So I just bring that up because even though I don't subscribe to it, it's been part of my honing in on what actually resonates for me personally. And then I kind of got into, this is kind of where I've landed actually, is the more spiritual view of the afterlife. And what makes sense to me is that we chose to incarnate in these bodies at this specific time. And we interact in the world and specifically with people we have agreements with in a way that evolves our soul. The third thing I wanted to bring up was this humanist view. And I got this from a horror movie. Well, okay. I was...
Did you see... Yes.
Did you see Midnight Mass?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. At the end of Midnight Mass, one of the main characters gives this monologue that is incredible.
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
She's talking about what she believes happens after you die. I pulled an excerpt of this because I wanted to read it again. It stuck with me, and what it did is it made me uncomfortable, but it was also beautiful the way that she described it. And I thought, well, there's something here for me to look at as far as am I clinging to an idea? Like I left this very religion-based idea of the afterlife. And then I kind of moved into this sort of woo-woo idea of potentially of what might happen. And then I started thinking when I heard this monologue, I was like, maybe I'm now clinging to that view and just kind of starting to evolve toward more of a, I'm okay with not knowing what's going to happen and exactly what it looks like. So I do want to read a little
Please.
part of
Yes.
this. I had to really like make it smaller because it's really long, but you can find
It
it
is very
online.
long.
I found it on Reddit, and someone had taken the time to transcribe it.
Bless them. Yeah.
Okay, she says, "When I die, my body stops functioning, just shut down. All at once or gradually, my breathing stops, my heart stops beating, clinical death. A little later, my brain cells start dying. But in the meantime, in between, maybe my brain releases a flood of DMT, a psychedelic drug that releases when we dream. So I dream. I dream bigger than I have ever dreamed before because it's all of it. It's the last dump of DMT all at once. And my neurons are firing. I'm seeing this firework display of memories, imagination, and I'm just tripping, really tripping balls. It's the dream to end all dreams. My brain activity ceases, and there's nothing left of me. No pain, no memory, no awareness of what I ever was. And all the other little things that make me up, the microbes and bacteria, and the billion other little things that live on my eyelashes and my skin and my gut, they just keep on living and eating. And I'm serving a purpose, feeding life. And I'm broken apart, and all the littlest pieces of me are just recycled, and I'm billions of other places. My atoms are in plants, bugs, animals, and I'm like the stars that are in the sky. There one moment, and then just scattered across the cosmos. The electrons in my body mingle and dance with the electrons on the ground below me, and the air I'm no longer breathing. And I remember there's no point where any of that ends and I begin. I remember I am energy, not memory, not self. My name, my personality, my choices all came after me. I was before them, and I will be after, and everything else is just pictures picked up along the way. I am the energy firing the neurons. I am returning. Just by remembering, I am returning home, as like a drop of water falling back into the ocean of which it's always been a part. Isn't that something?
It's
Is
nice to
that kind
hear
of how
you
you
read it.
remember it?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I watched that show completely twice. And it is such a long monologue and there's so much going on. So it's really nice to actually have it read to me and to just
And
sit and
she
listen.
reads it, speaks it very slowly, and
Mhm.
I mean, she's a great actress, so it's like it really takes you on this ride with her.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, I found that impactful, and I'm not bringing it up because I subscribe to that. I'm bringing it up because it made me uncomfortable because
Mm.
it so challenged my ideas about what
Mhm.
happens after we die. And also, there was something in it that resonated too. And I think it's the more certain I am about what happens, I use that as a cue a lot of times to think that I'm probably further off track, like the more certain I think I am. That makes sense.
Yes.
And that comes back to like being in a place where, we know exactly. Like anybody that says I know exactly, I'm kind of distrustful of that, myself included. So
Mhm.
so so I don't want to be locked in. I think when I heard that, I started kind of going, okay, well, let's pare this down to what do I know for sure? Like, what I know is that nature is very cyclical and that energy changes forms. Like, we know this. And also, I believe that there is a power greater than us. And I believe that that power is not just fueled by love, but is love. Like, we're much bigger than we can wrap our little heads around. So I kind of hold to that and then try to be flexible with the rest.
Uh, you were sharing that like around the 8 to 10 years old, when like if you didn't say a prayer before you fell asleep, like you know. And at that same time, for little Taylor, and I think I was going to a church camp or something. But anyway, I ended up having like my first existential crisis, like in the middle of the night one night, because I was thinking of the concept of forever. Because it was, oh, when you die, you go to heaven, you'll be there forever. It's so great. And I was like, this terrifies me.
Yeah, forever.
Can't get it. Had to wake my mom up and be like, yeah, I don't understand forever. And she's like, it's okay. So that, and then like getting into my late teens, early 20s, I feel like that's the first time I was really introduced to the idea of reincarnation. And to me, against my like casual Christian upbringing, very different than yours. But it, like, I was like, okay, so there's this God that all they want is for us to return to them or be absorbed back with them. And so, if that's true, it would seem that we would get as many incarnations as we need to hone in on becoming a compassionate being in this world. And then, that would be that. So, that's the first thing that kind of got me like, wait a minute, that makes more sense to me than you got one shot. Good luck. Oh boy. And then of course I got into yoga, and then I got into Buddhism, and reincarnation really, yeah, has continued to make a lot of sense to me. I think something that pulled me towards death work that I didn't realize for a while, but I'm really intrigued in sitting with the idea of there not being anything. Then it does kind of bring the sharpness to now of like, well, maybe I don't have another incarnation to try
Mhm.
again, or, whatever that might be. Or there's not a heaven, however defined, that's going to, make this better. Like, what if there is nothing? If it was all to end and I never got to see my mom again, which even saying that out loud makes me want to cry, because of course I want that. She loved me and I loved her, and we absolutely knew that. And that was such a lesson of that feels so complete. So if that's it, okay. I tell people I love you all the time. Like every time I polo you or talk, I mean, that's the last thing I say. I don't think you can say it too much. And I think there's something about that that's just keeps that feeling very complete to me. That if, I walk out the door here and I get hit by a car and that's it, game over. Okay. It's interesting too, because that's a, can't remember what I was listening to, but the question was like, what makes your life feel complete? And I think it's that same kind of thing of, while we ask and continue to ask ourselves this question of like, what happens after we die, and exploring ideas and theories and all this stuff, I think it's great. And I think it's good to also think, okay, if let's just set that aside for now, and what makes life feel complete. And that's a good way to kind of maybe hold the 2.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Another thing that has come up in talking about this is, let's say the goal was to feel comforted and okay. What's interesting to me is that the people that I have worked with that have the most rigid mindset, this is what it's going to look like, and this is what it is. In my experience, those are the people that have the hardest time
Mm-hmm.
as it gets, not always, but a lot of times as it gets close to the end. And the people I've seen have the most comfort and the most ease in that way, spiritually, emotionally, are the people that have practiced getting okay with not knowing. You can have faith in God and, believe in Jesus and all of these things. And also just kind of recognize that our perspective is so small right now
Mm-hmm.
in this situation that we're in, that like maybe we don't need to have it all figured out. And like we can hold more than one thing, which is kind of similar to what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And that, yeah, so that leads me to thinking of my preference is that, and my feeling is that, much like you, yes, there's this power, there's this something that is, I mean, yeah, our brains and the small amount that we're able to use can't possibly comprehend. They would implode.
Just like we
Uh,
can't comprehend forever, right? Like
right, back
we're
to
not
my existential crisis. Yes. Yeah, it's just too big. And so when I get into thinking, I would love to see my mom in the form I know her in. I'd love to see these people and pets and stuff in the forms I knew them in. That'd be super cool. And maybe that's something that happens in that brain dump when we die, where it's like, there they all are. Like she's saying in the monologue, it's just your brain releases all this stuff and you're like, oh, everything's back, everything's here. I'm willing to believe that I won't care or notice, like, oh, my mom in this form isn't here, or these people, whatever's beyond is just, again, like you're saying, it's so much bigger. We can't fathom it. And I think there's this overwhelming sense of peace, of just like, okay, like everything is okay. And so there's no missing, there's no worry, there's no despair, there's no this, that, and the other. It's just has been absolved.
I'm going to add on to that, which is that idea of strong desire to see someone that you love in the same form.
Mm-hmm.
We think
Mm-hmm.
of it as that's the only way it would feel like satisfying, kind of. But that's because we're contained in this physical form.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are no longer contained in this physical form, that same essence or like that feeling would be so all encompassing. Yeah, that it's in that way maybe way better than seeing your person.
Yeah, I know, I'm tracking with you. Now I'm thinking about that Flaming Lips song, What is the Light? Because it's about that too, of
Mm-hmm.
these,
Great song.
we always were, we always will be. We're so entwined, like from particles to energy. And again, back to that monologue. I mean, it's just that, oh, I want to be me seeing my mom, or, whatever the case may be for whomever. And it's like, oh no, like you are your mom. And you are these people and you are the pets. You're not separated anymore. And really, that's probably the greatest suffering, right? Is the separation. So to me, whatever's beyond, it would be the coming together of it all. Like, that sounds
Yes.
great. Yeah. Well, we cracked it again. We figured
Okay.
it out. We all absolve into light together, and it's awesome. But like, kind of, like, I kind of think maybe.
Makes sense to me. Okay, we're going to try a new sign off today. And if it works, then we'll do it every time. It is a funny obituary.
I
So,
can't wait.
what better way to end than an obituary? So, anything else you want to add before I read it?
Actually, yes. I don't, if I, people watching, comment, if you can comment obviously on the video. I would
Yeah.
love to hear anybody else tell us what you think happens after we die. I'd just like to hear what people have to say.
And I'll also say, if this is something that people want to really get into one on one, we do support sessions that can look like really anything. So it
Mm-hmm.
can be a chat online
Sure.
or in person potentially too. So
Absolutely, it can.
just keep that in mind. You can go to our website and book a support session. Okay, Pat Stocks, 94, passed away peacefully at her home in bed July 1st, 2015. It is believed it was caused from carrying her oxygen tank up a long flight of stairs to her bedroom that made her heart give out. She left behind a hell of a lot of stuff to her daughter and son who have no idea what to do with it. So, if you're looking for two extremely large TVs from the 90s, a large ceramic stork umbrella cane stand, a toaster oven, or even a 2001 Oldsmobile with a spoiler, she loved putting the pedal to the metal, with only 71,000 kilometers and 1,000 tools that we aren't sure what they're used for. You should wait the appropriate amount of time and get in touch. Tomorrow would be just fine. Love that part.
Okay, another lovely episode with you, my friend. Thanks for asking the biggest question ever.
And we answered it.
And we
Turns
answered
out.
it. So there we
Those
go.
are
Bye, everyone.
Bye.